there's things that are going on. We've got all kinds of new people here that are very well versed and very experienced in the areas that we needed. And so I'm super excited to have their help and their camaraderie and their knowledge and expertise. And they are a great team. We were meeting with the superintendent yesterday, and she goes, "I love this group. You guys are spicy." So one of the things that we took away from that is we're not going to try to smooth over anything. We're going to let the information be what it is and be honest about it. And if there's things that we need to fix, we know we need to fix, then we're going to do that. And we're going to make sure that they're right. So I'm really excited that they're both here. And then we also have Nicole Thuat, who is our Achievement in Montana, or our AIM manager. And she's actually been with OPI for quite a while. She was part of the finance team, and we actually got to sneak her over here for a little bit. We had to share her for a little while. But Nicole is running the AIM team with the Infinite Campus side and has been doing a great job. And we're really excited to have her as well. So along with that, we also have Bitsy Drar here, and we have Zam Aldina. They're two of our project managers for the projects that we've talked about before, the TMT and the single sign-on. And then I also have Tristan Leverage, and we have Marla Swanby as well from our internal project management team. So they're also helping today. And so we're going to take some good notes. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, we'll make sure that we get those things answered. Tristan, oh, you got to clap on that. There we go.
Yeah, I was just waving hi.
Okay. All right. Any questions before I get further into what we need to do? All right. So let me get this screen shared here. So we're going to go over just an update on the modernization. That was the first thing on the agenda, and talk about some of the things that are going on. And some of it actually will include some of the other things that are in that agenda area from the business perspective. So myself and Zam are basically the CIO and the project manager on this. And we've been working at this, as you guys know, for quite a while. This summer, we were putting in an RFP to get an assessment going. We've ran into some certain challenges with our DOA, and so I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But right now, up on the screen, we have the slide of our current state. So our Teach Montana has been implemented since June. That's going very well. We have, I'll touch on this here in a bit, some Teams challenges. There's some database and data connections that were problematic for us, I guess would be the best way to say it, this fall. And so I'll discuss that here in a little bit. We have been meeting with Microsoft to discuss some data access, security, and management, and what kinds of things that they can help us with from the modernization standpoint. And in delving into that a little bit more, what we found is they've actually been through modernization projects with Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Nebraska. And so we're looking at that from purely the aspect of what can Microsoft do for us, and what kind of advantages would there be with going down that road with them. So we are certainly looking into that. The next part down there on the slide is the Microsoft Purview. And what that's going to allow us to do is look at our data structures, look at the systems to see how and where that data flows and what data has been repeated. Essentially the same type of thing we were going to do with the assessment. And we feel that Microsoft's tool and their expertise can help us with a lot of those pieces. And we're excited about that. The single sign-on, we have over 30 OPI departments that are have apps that are in there, department apps or unit apps, and we have over 4,500 users right at this point that are using that system. And it hasn't necessarily been an easy road some days, but we've been helping out everybody as best we can. And we make sure that if there are problems or challenges that we get those rectified, and we have actual people that can talk and help out the folks that are having a challenge with those things. So any questions on the current state or where we're at?
Hey, Chris, it's Zam here.
Yeah.
So I had the 30 OPI departments as one of the numbers that I have, but I'm going to shoot that over to Bitsy because she probably has a more accurate number on that. Were we sitting at 30 or was it more than 30 at this point right now?
Let's see, I gave numbers to Chris. I'll look, I'll update that in a moment.
I think it's a little bit more, but
It might be a little bit more, yeah.
keep in mind, this is only about a month old.
I'll double check here while we're on it. I can't remember the number exactly either.
Thank you. So essentially, so our future state, we're looking at working with Microsoft and working with hopefully other vendors that will help us along with doing some of these applications and building out this structure and working to get us down the road of snowflake type technology and whatever those recommendations are to help us build a better system within the OPI structures that will help one consolidate and make sure that we are working towards easier interface with you folks that are trying to enter data to slim down the number of entries of data that you guys have to deal with and those challenges. Along with that, we are procuring 2 temporary programmers that will help us build some of these structures and get us down the road. We have a little future planning in that regard where we have a couple of folks that are going to retire here at the end of next year. And with all the OPI systems that we currently have, there's a ton of old code, a ton of systems that have basically been maintained over the last 5 to 10 years. And with the modernization, we're looking at getting some new blood to help us get in there to understand the old systems and then also help us develop and build some into the new. And so we're really excited about doing all that. Along with that is we had some discussions with a couple of the other departments. I'll get to that here in a little bit, but in the sense of sharing data across other state agencies. And that's where the snowflake type technology is going to come into play. And that's one of the things that we are certainly going to help look into and build into our architecture to make sure that we have that ability to do those things easily down the road. Along with that, of course, the SSO we have deployed with all of our throughout all of the departments within OPI and units to make sure that those applications are easily obtainable from the user standpoint where they don't have to necessarily log into multiple systems. That being said, we also try to make sure that we have on top of that all the security that's necessary to protect that data and that information so it doesn't get into the wrong hands and that the people that are authorized or allowed to use that data are allowed to do so. So the next part there is our timelines. Our timeline, we were hoping to have an agreement or an award to a vendor out yesterday. We ran into some roadblocks working with our DOA. We've had, well, more than a month and a half of delays for various reasons. And so it's been very challenging. And so we decided that we wanted to look at the Microsoft Avenue since they already are an approved vendor with the state. And so within the next week or so, we'll have that ironed out and make sure that we're good to go there. what that's going to do is that's going to move up and make it a lot quicker for us to do the analysis and get our recommendations out. So we're hoping to have that done with the holidays around the beginning of March timeframe. And then from there, what that's going to help us do is get us a plan for how we're going to build these systems and what we're actually going to take down the road to the schools and the districts, and what kind of input we can get from you from the user end and standpoint. We know that Microsoft and Google are across the board pretty much with a lot of the schools. And I believe the deputy superintendent is going to send out a, I don't know if you call it a technology survey, to find out what everybody's using so we can kind of get a sense of where that is. But that's one of the things that we were just talking about this week to help get us some better information in regard to that. And then we still have our target dates of, I'm sorry, somebody have a question? No? Okay. We still have our target dates for the ESSER 2. We have to have, I think it's $8.5 million it's $8 million actually obligated by September of this next year, which we already have about 3 million of that obligated. And then the following year, 2024, there's another 5.5 million. So those are right at this point in time, we have about 10 million left of that 13.5 million that was allocated to do the data modernization. And so we feel comfortable that we're on track with that, and we'll be able to put good use of that money. So the goals, this is just a repeat of what we've had before with a little expansion on it. Modernization and analysis recommended strategy and the roadmap of where we can take it and where we can go. Modernization and develop a deployment model, which I know we had questions on. How are we going to train the field and get that information out? And that will be part of that. So we're communicating out with everyone what's going to happen, timelines, when things are going to come about, all the trainings that are going to happen. And we're not certainly going to put anything out without letting anybody know or not have any training. So I know Bitsy had a really great training plan with the single sign-on and the things like that. Communication was very extensive out to the field. There's still some challenges that go along with that, but we met every one of those and we felt very excited. We were pleased that it was very successful in the way it was implemented. So along with that, obviously we have to take into account the security and the access, and the reporting needs to go along with those implementations. And so those are obviously going to be a part of that project, and how and what we need to produce to make sure we're producing high quality and excellent data results for the needs. So one of the things that we've talked about, we met with OCHI, DLI, DOC last week in regards to what kind of data needs do they have. And so we put together a group to discuss that. We just had our initial meeting last week. Some things have came up out of that meeting that we're needing to answer. But the flip side of that is we also need to understand exactly what are they asking for from us. So we understand what those needs are. So any questions on that? Okay, here's just the base timeline in kind of a calendar form for you to take a look at. That was in the presentation that was sent out. And then the last slide are the budgetary numbers that we came up with initially for the areas that we felt needed to be improved upon. And once we have this analysis done and we get a roadmap, we'll be able to quantify those a lot better. So we're really excited about that. And I am really anxious to see what and hear what Florida and Georgia. I know some of these schools have a lot more kids than we do. And so we're excited to see what kinds of things that they came about and built for their systems. So any questions on that? All right. Teams challenges. One of the things we hate to talk about are the bad things, right? So one of the things that came out of our TMT was there were some challenges with some of the data that was coming out of the Teach Montana system into one of our legacy systems, and that which the team system was pulling information out of. So we've been wrangling with that for the last month, really trying to figure out how to get that rectified and fixed. Internally, what we did was Andy and team set up basically some triage with the Teams unit to where we could get the security things that they were having challenges with and problems fixed as soon as they could. And so they did a very good job. It certainly wasn't pleasant work to do. And I know the people on the other end that were having problems were not thrilled with some of the way things were working for them. But we worked through that and were able to get everybody in to do some of the things that they needed to do. And it also brought to light some of the challenges when you are implementing new systems, to make sure that you're being thorough with what touches what and where does the data go and how does that flow. And I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I can say categorically, a lot of us that were here when that was initially conceived were not there at that particular point in time. So we're trying to get things fixed, and we thank everybody for their patience to try to work through those challenges. The other thing that we are doing is reviewing the team system internally to see how and if that could actually flow into the Infinite Campus system that we currently use as our SIS, and how the Chapter 55 changes that are probably going to come about here this next year affect that. And so we're already on top of that to try to make sure that we have all of those I's dotted and T's crossed to make those things a lot more smooth than what they have been. So again, our apologies for some of the challenges that were out there, but we tried to do our best to make sure that we could hit those head on and try to get those resolved. So I do want to thank Zam for working diligently in the background, Andy and his team for pulling through. Bitsy piped in a little bit once in a while to try to help with some of that stuff. So it was a good team effort, and I certainly appreciate that. So any questions in that regard? Okay. With that, we wanted to bring up some of the things that were going on with the AIM unit, and I asked Nicole to step in to pull up and talk about some certifications. And so she has a presentation that she's going to do for us here. So if there aren't any questions at all, you guys are really quiet today, so hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Nicole.
That sounds good. Marla, if you could allow me to share my screen. Okay, so I just wanted to do this quick presentation. I've done this for a couple of our internal groups, but basically the verification of data, or the getting data right, I guess, starts at the district or where it's being entered. So these are some of the things that we have available in Infinite Campus for districts to use to get the data right at the beginning. Okay, so we have a series of canned reports, which have variable search options. We have student enrollment reports. which are as of a specific date. They can be organized by district, calendar, school, grade. They can be done with or without student names. We have enrollment overlap reports that will show you enrollment overlaps both within the district or within the state. And we have FRAM eligibility reports that show students with free, reduced, or paid records. So here's an example of one of those reports. You can see here, you can select grade, school, service type. There's a bunch of different filters on these reports. These are ones that are built into the system, so there are no modifications that you can really make other than checking the boxes. Then we've expanded our use of the ad hoc reports, which are the on-the-fly state-created reports. These are the ones that we've put out there for districts to use that are grouped by collection. They're created by year, so they are updated every year for you. The results are determined by you, so you select the district, school, or calendar that you want the results for. And they have a variety of export formats, so XML, CSV, or Excel, fixed width, PDF, or there's a cube analysis that's available as well. These are what those reports look like. You select the school and the year, you select the report and the format, and they come out for you. So the good thing about ad hoc reports is you get to choose, or we get to choose, the data elements from the selected group of fields that are within Infinite Campus. There is some flexibility in terms of function and output, but it is fairly limited. And of course, the biggest disadvantage is that you have to run multiple reports for the same collection. So how do we fix that? Here's what an ad hoc report looks like. You can see that there is some functionality in terms of field selection and filter. But what we're really trying to move to for districts is data validation. And of course, the next step after data validation will be certification. But the advantage of data validation is these are state-created reports that get published to the district. We're able to have a greater ability to customize these reports by topic. We can use at least basic SQL functionality, so it is definitely a broader report than either the canned or the ad hoc reports. And of course, the big thing is that we can run multiple reports in one output. So you don't have to go look at problem A, problem B, problem C. You'll have one report in which all those things come out together. And then we are able to define the level of importance. So is it for your information? Is it a warning? Or is it something that would prevent you from telling us that your data is complete? We can create these problem and list reports simultaneously. So again, it's combining a bunch of different things together. And then we can use it either with or without data certification. So here's one that you may be familiar with. We're currently using it for behavior and graduate dropout and cohort certification. You can see that the graduate data checks here are 5 separate, essentially ad hoc reports, although they're more robust than our ad hoc reports, that are all combined into one. And then they output into one report. So you're going to have your summary up there at the top. And then it's going to give you the list of the students who are included in each of those reports, or the counts of those students in a much longer page. But it kind of gives us the ability to consolidate, hopefully to save the district's time in reviewing their data. And then of course, leading to certification. So the next step from here would be just to go in and click a button and tell us, yes, this data is accurate. And then we have that official record. So that's what I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Looks great. I like how you streamlined various different aspects of it. Thank you.
Hey,
You're
Nicole, this is Scott Kinney from Superior. And
Yes.
I was just reading in a fairly terrified manner, are we, or is the state looking at our school at supplanting the campus?
I'm going to defer that question to Chris.
Oh, come on, Nicole.
I don't blame you.
There have been some rumors floating around that that is the case, and I can assure you at this point in time, the answer is no. We have currently over 100 and I think it's 190 districts that are currently on Infinite Campus, and we only have 20 some that are on Power School. There are some other stragglers out there as well. But at this point in time, we are set on Infinite Campus, and I believe we are in the second of a 5-year contract with them. Does that seem right, Nicole?
That's correct. And we have a mutually agreeable extension to 10 years when we get to
Right.
the point. It's not a requirement to renegotiate.
So our staff is really comfortable with the Infinite Campus structure and the things that are going on and trying to keep everything straight. So at this point in time, my job is to see how we can get the Power Schools and other SISs to get their information into us a lot easier. And that's where we know that Microsoft can help us with that particular function and task. So that way we don't have to worry about going down the road of trying to convert. First of all, if we tried to convert 190 districts, I don't think any of us here in town will be able to drive anywhere safely. So we certainly don't want to be in jeopardy of those kind of discussions in the summertime.
Just an unpaid plug and shameless advertisement for my buddy Marianne Skinner. Just so you guys all know, from the school end of all of the data collection, Marianne worked for Montana School Services out of Bozeman, and she probably logs 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year across the state. Every time I get in front of a superintendent's group, I share our success with her doing training, and or she is a data genie, so she can jump on if she has admin rights for your system and try to reverse engineer the errors and figure out what's going wrong. But just so you know, they are an absolutely amazing partner for schools in the state. And granted, a lot of schools don't use them, but the SAM group and through the 9 different mass meetings, they have all either contracted with Montana School Services or at least had Marianne and or her boss, Tom Franta, in their meetings to talk about this, because data is so challenging for schools. So data submission is a big deal. So just want to do a plug, a shout out. If you can make her drive a little bit more, that'd be awesome.
Great. Well, I appreciate that, Superintendent, and we certainly will pass that around. And I know Nicole works with Marianne and the Montana School Services team almost on a daily basis. And so they're well aware of the things that they're doing, and we can agree more that they are certainly help out, and they are irreplaceable as far as I can see from what I've heard all summer. So it's a good relationship, and we've had Infinite Campus come in and talk about what's going on with school services, and they love working with school services as well. So it's a good relationship, and we're certainly happy that they've been able to help out and do some of the heavy lifting that you guys are in need of. So that's awesome. Great. Well, any other questions for Nicole on that? I actually have one. So Nicole, if somebody needs some help with ad hoc reports or trying to set up some of those things for their school, for their district, I presume that they can just call in and say, hey, can somebody help us with this?
100% anytime.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. One of the last things that I have on, just from our perspective, We, as I stated earlier, we met with OCHI DLI, DOC on data needs. And we've been tussling around ideas, excuse me, of what kind of data could be shared, how that would be shared and whatnot. And so with this group of agencies, we're going to be working through trying to figure out exactly what that means and how that would affect the schools and the districts, as well as any of the student level data. So we're very cognizant of what our legal requirements are. We are very protective of that student level data. And we want to make sure that if this is supposed to be shared, that the right processes and procedures are followed in order to make that happen. Along with that, once we get some more meetings under our belt and understanding of what is really truly needed, then we'll get that out to this group to make sure that you're all aware of what the requests have been from these agencies of OPI. So any questions there? Okay. I'll open up the floor to any of the members, member forum time, to see if there's anything that anybody wants to bring up. Oh, before we do that, I'm sorry. There was a question from the last meeting in regard to the CRDC reports and whatnot. And Nicole is well aware of that within the district edition of Infinite Campus, there's a report that can be generated for that. And Superintendent Kenny, I don't remember if that was your question last time or whose that was.
It was.
Okay. Do you need some help with that, or were you guys able to find that?
We found it, it didn't work perfectly. And so again, we had Mary Ann, that was why I was just plugging her. She went around and drove all over the state to hold localized trainings for people with CRDC.
Okay.
And, which was great in our area. Clinton School offered up their tech lab, and she trained about 12 school districts. They were able to at least initially get their school reporting done, but then a lot of us had a lot of difficulty just submitting because the federal intake portal was so far behind. It would take sometimes hours to get our forms in. So hopefully that will be better this year. But I do know that the problems that we experienced, we had kind of created a catalog of those who worked to get ready for this year, because we all knew that we were going to have to do it all over again. So hopefully it'll be a little more streamlined.
Okay. Nicole, let's have a sidebar conversation about that after this, and we'll see if there might be some ideas that we can come up with to help.
I agree. And actually this year I did work with some Teams issues with Mary Ann. So I anticipate working with Mary Ann again. And I think, yeah, we'll definitely have discussions, because I think we can all work together and make this easier for schools.
Yeah, the other thing, Superintendent, if you guys are running into problems at that level and Mary Ann is having some challenges along with that, we want to help with that and put pressure on Infinite Campus to get some of those things fixed. And so it's great that we have that relationship so we can try to help out with that. All right. So I'll revert back to our agenda and open the floor up for any member questions or comment. Good. Okay. Is there any public comment?
So what is the next phase that you guys are going to be presenting to us next time?
So what we, Paul, that's a great question. And what the superintendent wanted me to ask, and I wanted to put this out on the floor, is basically the meeting schedule. We have not, from what I've seen in the past, there's been maybe 1 or 2 meetings a year for this group. What I would propose is that we do something quarterly, if that is amiable to everybody that's here on the call. And we would essentially, at this point, what I'm hoping, Paul, is that we're down the road here a couple of months with building and done and completed with the analysis of our data and those connections with those systems. So we know and have a priority of what areas we're going to tackle. And we think that Microsoft has some tools that will be able to answer those questions. And we're looking forward to going down that road with them. They're really excited. They have a great team that's ready to jump on board and start plowing the road, if you will, to get some of these things built. So we're really excited for that. So that's what my expectation is. Zam is probably cringing because he's the PM from the side of course, the great risk analysis of, where we could fall down, but that's my hope. And that's what we're shooting for right at this point in time.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Chris, I put in the chat the detail and answer to Zam's question. Probably more detail than a lot of people want to see, but it's detail for you on the single sign-on project.
Awesome.
Numbers.
Sweet. Yep, 28 are complete, 4 applications in the portal enabled. And let's see, you were working on 2 this month, right? The next 2 months.
Yeah.
And
Also
right.
e-grants.
Right. Mayfair, right. Mayfair sped and e-grants, right?
Currently, in work.
So, super. That's great stuff.
Bitsy and Scott, can I share that with Dummy Mass? Just your response, because we talk about this every month.
Who's,
This
yeah,
is
you're
Scott
welcome.
Superior.
You're welcome to share with whoever you want to. Who? Oh, Scott Kinney.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
just everybody likes to know, we talk about it. And then, I'm not sure that the assistant superintendent, she doesn't know this stuff. I don't think as granular, obviously, as you guys do, but she does try to cover this stuff when she goes over the compass. But I do know that this has a deep and abiding interest of our membership, just to know what's going on, because it's one of the things that some of us have, up to 6 or 7 different logins, and it's a pain. So this is awesome.
And one of the other things too, Superintendent, is we're going to, one of the things that I realized I've been focusing on all the things modernization and working with the data and IT unit, the AIM unit and gyms and all that with inside. And I have neglected our data modernization web update information. And so we're going to get that up and going here by, I would say within the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll have that all up to date. So then we can actually point people out to that area so they know where things are and what's going on. So that's on me, and my apologies for not getting that out there. So it is much easier to try to find that information. So, okay, no public comment or anything. Is there, unless there was anything else? Paul, do you have another question? I know you do.
It is, everything looks great. I'm just really curious to see when those schools that Power School, Infinite Campus, but how those other ones maybe that aren't using those will work. And but I love the idea. We have a program called Clever that incorporates all different kinds of software into it, and it's just one hub where a person can log in, and it logs them into various different academic areas. And so this is really, I like the model that it's going for. And if, you know, once you guys fine tune it, get those errors out, I think it's going to be great for the state.
Super. We might have to have some people call on you to talk about your endeavor with Clever.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right. Does anybody have any ideas for future agenda topics? We're going to have modernization on there, of course. Is there anything else of interest that anybody would like us to discuss or open up for a forum? Okay. Well, feel free to shoot any of us an email to let us know. Or you can always give us a call either way. We're here for you and we want you to know that. And we're not trying to make things rough and hard some days, but we know they are. And we are trying to, smooth things out, like Paul said. And some days as you all know, they're a little bit challenging, but we'll get there. And I have full confidence in the team that we have and in the people that we have working with us on those. So I think what I'll do, I'll put it out to an email vote on quarterly meetings, and we'll try to set those dates well in advance. And I think what we'll do, some of the ideas that I have was we'll center some of the agenda topics around what's going on at those particular times of year or what's coming up in the next quarter. So that would hopefully help everybody.
Sounds great.
All right. Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions? The door's open.
Paul, were you selling pretzels last weekend at Washington Grizzly Stadium?
I was doing it for my daughter's ballet company. They're fundraising to go to an LA and trip for China this summer. So I had to work a couple of home games this season. I wish I would have got to see more of the games themselves, but it was still fun to be there.
Yeah, my wife bought a pretzel from you, and I'm pretty positive it was you, but
Yeah, that was me.
Well, you got to love Montana, right? The small town connection.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Super. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. I certainly appreciate your time and glad that you were all here. So there again, if you have any questions or anything, get a hold of us. Dustin, I know I need to catch up with you on some of the things that you were trying to gather for us from the field standpoint. Just a side note, Dustin was going to talk some of the area schools up there to find out what kind of things that they needed to be put into or on top of the data modernization lists. So those were, it's going to be some great input. And if you guys have any ideas of, what kind of the pain points are for you, send those our way so we can track those and make sure that we get those cleared up and rectified with our new systems that we end up building here. So it's good stuff, and we appreciate the input and want to make sure that you guys know that you have an open door to tell me what you think and what you want. So with that, hope everybody has, thanks, Marla. Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving and a great holiday season, and drive safe. Stay off the ice and stay out of the Californians road. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.